Okay, now it's time to talk about conditional operators and the if statement. Conditional operators are used to compare elements with each other. So I may compare a variable with a value, for example, or I may compare a variable with another variable. There are a number of different comparison operators which we'll get into later, but the most important one is the equals comparison operator. So I'm going to begin by typing in a particular if statement here, and the result that I want to get from this particular script is I want someone to enter in a number in a prompt dialog box, and I want to check to see if that number is equal to 10 or not. If it is equal to 10, I then want there to be an alert that's thrown up onto the user's screen that says, congratulations. Okay? Otherwise, for now, I don't want there to be any result at all. So I'm going to do this with the if statement, as I mentioned before. So you type out if, and then a brace. So after the number has been input, we check it. And before that brace, we need to put in some parentheses. And the parentheses enclose the comparison that's going to be made. And the comparison is if first num, I'm going to type this out sort of in English first, and then we're going to modify it so that it will actually work in JavaScript. If first num equals 10. Now, this won't work just yet. We have to modify it. But basically, in English, if first num equals 10, then we want to then create an alert. And the alert is going to be similar to the alert that we've done before. I'm just going to put congratulations. And you must, when you use a brace, you must close that brace off. And in fact, it's sometimes useful when you type that first brace to type the ending brace so that you don't forget it later on, and then just type your code in between. So the brace key is up and to the left a little bit of the enter key on your keyboard, and please don't use the shift key when you try to get to the brace, because otherwise you'll get a regular bracket, sort of a squared off bracket, and that won't work at all. So let's go back to here. Well, first off, first num, as we mentioned before, will never be equal to 10 because first num is always going to be a text value. It's always going to be a string. So we need to use a parseInt function around first num in order to get a numerical value. That's the first thing. Now, you would think that this would work, but in fact, in JavaScript, you can't use the equals sign as a comparison. You must use a double equals sign. And this is really, really important. You use the equals sign when you're assigning a value to a variable, but you use a double equals sign to compare a value and a variable, or a variable with another variable. It's very important that you understand that. Now, if this is true, then we're going to alert congratulations. Now, I'm going to try this code, and you'll see that it really doesn't work. I saved this under a JS11A here. And I'm going to drag this over into the Internet Explorer, and you'll find out that it doesn't work at all. And I wonder why that is. So we need to now do some troubleshooting. And one of the ways that I troubleshoot is I try to match things up, such as opening and closing tags. And the other thing that I look for is spelling problems, or if I've accidentally put a space inside of a variable name, or something really, really picky. JavaScript is a very picky language with regards to case sensitivity, extra spaces in between or within variable names, etc. But it also needs to have the proper tags. So let's just take a look at this, and this is how I go through and troubleshoot code. I match up my HTML tags, my body tags, everything looks good there. My head tags, everything's fine there. Make sure that you've got the opening and closing less than and greater than sign here for each tag. The title tag is properly opened and closed here. But let's take a look at the script tag. The script tag closes off here, but oh, look at that. We have completely forgotten the beginning script tag. in my editing, I have accidentally erased that. So I'm going to select that text and copy it, and then I'm going to put it where it belongs, right underneath here, the title tag. And I'm going to take out that little slash there, because it's a beginning script tag, and I'm going to save it again. So 11A now prompts us for a number. I'm going to type in the correct number, because I can cheat if I want to. Click OK, and sure enough, I get congratulations. Okay, so the script now works. So in your troubleshooting, you want to be very careful to check all of the tags, the beginning and ending tags, as well as the spelling. Now, I'm going to continue on from here to create JavaScript 11b. So I'm going to file save as 11b. And I'm going to make a modification to this. And the modification I'm going to make is, well, what happens if they enter in the wrong number? Well, if they enter in the wrong number, then we want to let them know that they did so. And we use the else statement for this. And the else statement is very similar to the if statement, except that you use the word else. And we're going to alert, sorry, you guessed the wrong answer. And we put the closing parenthesis there. Now, we're going to save this out, and we'll look at that execution in just a minute. But first, I just want to call your attention again to the opening and closing brace, the word else, and the way that JavaScript is going to execute this code is that if this comparison here is true, it will execute what's between these braces. Otherwise, it will execute what's between these braces. If the number happens to be 10 that's input, then we get congratulations, but we bypass these series of statements here. If it's not equal to 10, if it's other than 10, this evaluates to false, and it will only execute this script down here, or that portion of the script. So that's been saved. I'm going to go now to JS11B, pop this in here. I'm going to type in another number other than 10, click OK, and sure enough, we get an alert box in which it tells us that we have guessed the wrong answer. Click OK, and we're back to scratch here. So it's very important, again, to understand the if-else construction. You don't need the else construction unless you want to provide an alternative script to execute. If you just want to give the person congratulations, you can just use the if statement all by itself.